The question is, what do I do if I'm having doubts in my relationship? A little bit more details. This person says, I've been with my partner for a little bit over a year and a half, and we have a large pay discrepancy. In the beginning, I didn't think it was a big deal, but now it's starting to be a point of contention for us. I'm starting to doubt if there is long-term potential with this partner. What do I do if everything else is going well?
Well,
Well,
there's
everything
always
else-
going to be something. I think that's like first and foremost. There's always going to be something.
Always. Well, and everything else is not going well if this is what's bothering you, right? We can't think like this is separate from everything else. This does bleed into every other aspect of your relationship.
Yeah. I mean, I think the reality is that things haven't changed, right? This is something you do from day one. So it needs to be, can I fully accept my partner for who they are? Or is it that much of a problem that I need to leave and find someone that's a better match for me at that? Knowing that there may be other areas that they're not a better match, right? So no one is perfect. No one is going to check all the boxes. But ultimately, only you know how essential one thing is. I think the worst case is staying and feeling like resentment about it. Like that is the worst. Like I think you need to either get over it and just be like, I'm going to be the primary breadwinner with today's world. If it's woman or man, whoever, like there's no shame in that. Like everyone is on a different page. And, or you need, like know it's a deal breaker for you.
Yeah. The issue here is that in early dating, we tend to overlook some of these issues that we may encounter later in our relationships because these are more for long-term compatibility. And then in early dating, you're like, everything's great. Anything goes. This person's fun. They're nice. We're having a good time. And when you hit that year mark or year and a half mark, I think that's when you start thinking, could this be long-term? And I've personally haven't been in this situation, but I've had many friends, many girlfriends who are high-powered positions, doctors, lawyers, whatever, and they marry or are in relationships with men who don't make nearly as much, maybe 1/3 what they do. And I think what has worked for them is this open communication about it. I think what doesn't work is when you, like you said, Julie, when you have the resentment or when you start thinking, when are they going to get a higher paying job? But you don't actually say it to them. You're just waiting for things to happen.
Right.
It doesn't work like that. The relationships I've seen work, they have an open communication, say, if this high pay discrepancy between us is going to continue, how do we want to do our finances if we were to get married? How do we want to raise our children? How do we want to upkeep our lifestyle? And you have to agree on these terms. And maybe sometimes the other person says, okay, well, actually, I do want to make more money because I think we should be on the same page. Or they go, you know what, I want to contribute more in these other ways. But it has to be discussed. It's such an individual problem.
Yeah, and I love what you said. You can't force people to do something different, and also just certain occupations just pay differently. So it doesn't even mean that it's a reflection of their ambition or drive or anything like that. So I would also maybe challenge this person that wrote in to think about, like, what is it that's really bothering me? Is it like the prestige of their job? Is it the actual dollar amount? Is it that I feel like they're lazy? Like, I don't know. Like, what is it that's really bothering you? Because just the blanket, like, they don't make enough, it could be any of those things.
And the reverse too, think about what your partner's feeling. They don't want to feel inadequate. They don't want to feel like they're less than. So if you're not communicating this, you sure as hell are probably going to show it in a relationship. It's not going to make them feel good. And know that anything could happen in the future. I always say that, like, the future is so unpredictable. My friend was dating an artist and he was completely broke, but then was able to sell one painting for like 40 grand one month. You just never know with different occupations when they may hit the jackpot, or you could also lose your job and would be without any income for a while. So ultimately, have to look at the core of the foundation of the relationship. Is it suitable for a future? And be on the same page about the core values that you find are important.
Yeah, I do go back to like not everyone will have every last thing on your checklist.
No,
And, you know, I think that we just have to accept that. Like that is a truth of it. There's always going to be something. Always, no matter
always.
what. If you do end this relationship, then find someone that has the high paying job. There's going to be something else that's a challenge. So
Of course.
it's how can we work through this and how can we see this person for the good that they bring to the relationship? Because I really think focusing just on the negatives is set up for failure. And if that is what you're finding yourself doing, then it may be time to let this relationship go because, yeah, it's not fair. Like you were saying, Yue, it's not fair to the other person to be held to this standard. But before throwing in the towel, no, and I think we talked about this once on a podcast that we did on like, Dateable, like the primary podcast that we have with Alexandra Solomon. It's a little different. It's related to conflict, but it stuck with me is that every relationship there's going to be conflict. It's just going to show up in a little different way. So if you're just getting out to escape what you're currently in, like that's going to come back to bite you in a different form. So before you throw in the towel here, really look at what this relationship means holistically.
In my experience, what's so important in all of this is to maintain respect for your partner.
Yeah.
Because as soon as the respect is gone, everything is gone.
Yes.
So if you are seeing your partner as lesser than, you don't really think they have a real job, or you don't think they can live up to your lifestyle standards, that's so dangerous and toxic because you're always going to see them as inferior to you. So it's important in these situations, maybe even couples counseling would be good, is to equalize a relationship so that you don't feel this disrespect for your partner, which will ultimately end in really bad results.
I agree. Respect is so foundational, and it doesn't need to be, money all the time. Like if that's the case, like look at your partner and say, is this an intellectual equal? Is this someone I can learn a different side, like different things from that I don't know? Like, do they challenge me in some way? Like it doesn't always have to equate to, I feel like sometimes we equate money to like how intelligent someone is or how successful they are. But even success doesn't always equate in terms of dollar amount. So I would encourage you to think about like what are some other ways that you can see the values that you're really looking for within this person that isn't necessarily just like a number.
Something that's kind of personal to both you and I is, we do this podcast. Yes, we have a full-time day job. But what if we only did this podcast and you were with a partner who's like, oh, you just do a podcast and you don't make enough to make a living? I don't think I could be with someone like that because this podcast is our baby. It means so much to us. Maybe we're not making so much money right now to sustain ourselves, but at least it's something that we really, truly love. And I, met up with a friend the other day and he was like introducing me to someone. He's like, oh, she has a podcast on the side. I'm like, no. It's not a podcast on the side. But he's like, but you don't make a full-time living on it. I'm like, it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter the money amount. So I think that's also important to talk about with your partners. Like, what are their passions and what are they working towards to? And for anybody who has dismissed you and I for doing this podcast, I'm like, what if one day we become these multimillionaires with this fucking empire of a business, which is what we're building? What are they going to say then, right? You didn't expect this.
Not
but
what
you didn't respect
if,
us enough.
When we become.
When.
No, but that would just like hit so hard if someone felt that way.
So hard.
But also it goes back to how do you measure success, right? Like, we've been on the top of the charts. We reach so many people and help them through their personal lives. Like there's so much success in there that doesn't correlate to dollars at all. So, I think the worst thing can be to not address it and to put them down in some way. I think ultimately we need to accept our partners for who they are, whether it's money or some other quality. We cannot bank on potential. That is like a surefire way to not let a relationship grow and to build resentment.
Ali Wong, perfect example.
Oh my God.
She married for stability, and then she got famous and rich, and look at her now.
They're
She's like,
divorced.
fuck you, bye.
Her whole comedy special is how she dreams of cheating on him, and then she's like, I'm divorcing.
Yeah, can you imagine in early dating, his parents probably just laughed at her, the prospect of her.
Yeah.
Being like, you're dating what? A stand-up comedian? And then her husband might have thought the same thing. You know, I'm just going to be supporting this woman for the rest of my life. That's fine. And look at where they are now. I think the respect part is so fucking important. And I'm guessing that's what happened, is that respect was lost.
Yeah. I think though, we can't like, I know it's so easy to be like, but what if maybe they'll turn into this superstar? But I think you have to really take at face value what is happening, because again, we really need to be, I think going off potential is the most dangerous thing you could do in a relationship. Yeah.
You go off to intent. So if you're dating someone who is a deadbeat, who's like, I don't ever want to work. I just want to be a stay-at-home whatever. Not even a stay-at-home parent, but just a stay-at-home person.
Stay at home, watch TV, do nothing. Yeah.
I want to be a professional Netflix watcher. Then maybe that doesn't coincide with your core values. But if you are dating someone who's like, hey, I'm still chugging along in my career. I have these goals in mind. I am motivated. I'm just not where I want to be right now. Then that's all you can really ask for, is the intent.
Yeah. So for anyone that caught last week's episode, it was when you know. So you're pretty sure. But my counter to that is I did read this article that basically it's okay to never be 100% sure.
Yeah.
That you'll never be 100% sure, because there's always going to be a side of you that thinks like, what if? You know, that's normal. And instead of fighting that, like, I think, all the stuff we talked about today on this all the stuff we talked about on this episode is really important to get to a place of respect, but also don't beat yourself up if you're not feeling like, oh my God, I know in my core 110%, like that is also a-okay. What are some of our key takeaways on this? Don't date for potential is number one.
Yeah, don't date for intent. Don't date for potential. And if you are having doubts with your partner, the first person to talk about these issues with is your partner.
Yeah. And get to the root of what the doubt really is, because sometimes we almost like mask it in something else that really isn't the true doubt. And when we say like their career isn't as lucrative as mine, like what does that really mean? Ask the why, then ask the why again, and the why again.
Why? All right, that is it for this episode. We are done with our bottomless talk.
I was gonna say, everyone's enjoying their Sunday fun day and pondering about what to do when you have doubts in your relationship. Maybe don't have 5 mimosas and then start talking about that.
Yeah, let's leave alcohol out of this. Alcohol just creates more doubt for anybody. And we will see you all back here next Sunday for another episode of Brunch Talk. In the meantime, send us your questions, hello@dateablepodcast.com, or DM us on Instagram @dateablepodcast.